All right, welcome back. We've got a good week here. Kurt, Nick, Austin, and Jay is joining us this week. And wait, Jay, are you the thing? Are you the thing? You're supposed to. Okay, fine.
Sick response.
Yeah, this week we're doing John Carpenter's movie, The Thing, which one of my favorite horror movies. But I don't say that every week about every movie we talk about. But seriously, this is one of like the great movies out there. And Nick brought it up last week. We wanted to talk about kind of a different genre than what we normally do. So we figured let's go to horror and let's try to find one of the best horror movies out there. And then this is for sure definitely it. So yeah, this is John Carpenter's sixth feature. It's the first in his Apocalypse trilogy, which is my personal favorite three films from his filmography. And it's about a research team that encounters a strange alien life form in Antarctica. It's the winter of '82. And the movie starts off with a helicopter tracking a husky. And we don't know why, but there's a Norwegian crew shooting at this husky. And we soon learn that the husky may or may not be involved with infecting the crew at this Antarctica station with an alien life form. And the movie just kind of runs away with that. And that's really the whole synopsis of the movie. It kind of just
Is that
deals
what that
with.
was? I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought Norwegians liked shooting dogs. That's just what I got from that part.
Well,
I might not have. I might have been. I might have missed something.
that when the Norwegian gets out of the helicopter and starts like yelling at them, you know that he like basically gives up the entire plot and like gives all of it up right there.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
but they don't
Yeah,
speak
he
Norwegian.
literally screams at them like, guys, the dog is not a dog. It's actually an alien thing. You need to kill it right now or we're all dead or something like that. So I
Yeah.
feel bad for all the Norwegian bros out there who just like it just ruined the movie. Well, I mean, did it really? Like, we all kind of knew, but like it was kind of funny that they could have also terrible shot. Just,
Oh, yeah.
the movie has to happen, but like, man,
He's popping off like eight shots and doesn't hit the
yeah,
dog.
that
And
guy
it's
did
not
not
like it's
pass.
hard to
Yeah,
see.
He had
he
like
didn't pass
bombs and
weapons well.
grenades. He
I'm
was
just
You know
saying.
throwing
what?
them.
If you want, we can watch the Superior prequel that came out in 2012.
No, no.
Really to dive in onto his backstory.
Yeah,
Uh,
so much for Nick being a Norwegian apologist. Just go watch that one.
yeah. But I just thought that was a funny thing that uh yeah. I had like the closed captions on. It was pretty funny. I was like, oh.
Yeah, and that's very Carpenter too, just that like cynical kind of humor because it is funny that he tells them everything they need to know and then Gary just shoots it in the eye.
Dude, it's scary, bro. Oh my God. All right.
But yeah, that's the synopsis of the movie. And really what's to talk about with this one is the paranoia because that is the entire pretty much like hour and 20 minutes out of the hour 40 is just the descent in the paranoia that these characters go through.
Yeah.
How I feel every time we do one of these.
All right. So yeah, let's go around everyone's initial and opening thoughts on this one.
I'll start it off. So for me, what I really love about this movie is it's like one of the few horror movies where it's not just like a blatant jump scare in terms of just like purposely trying to scare you. It's really just trying to get you to feel what the characters are feeling, like that just impending sense of dread, like in Doom, which I really like. The the practical effects, I don't think I've seen very many movies that do it this well. Um, and dude, I just kind of fucking love this movie. Even the soundtrack is awesome. There's like a little Easter egg where um on the radio they're like listening to Staying Alive, I think.
It's superstition.
Or Superstition, yeah, which is like it's so funny, like right on
Yeah.
the nose, but you just don't like it. Just kind of like if you're not really paying attention to that, like it just kind of goes to your head. But it's awesome, and I think there's a lot of moments like that where if you're not paying attention, it can go over your head. But um, I don't know. There's so much to talk about, and yeah, I just love that. I love everything about this movie. Austin.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like the practical effects in this movie are fantastic. They are so good. They're much less for even in like aside from it being made in the 80s, like even today, like the effects are really, really good. I that's my favorite part of this movie is like the practical effects and how they created the monsters and all the shots. Am I thinking like probably one of my favorite scenes is when they put like the hot needle in the blood and all the guys are like tied up together and the one person who is the thing like starts melting in
Mhm.
the chair and everyone's like tied up with him. It's like, give me the fuck away from me.
Yeah, yeah. Childs and Gary are freaking out.
Uh, that scene's great too because like that I can't remember what's that character's name? What's that guy's name?
Which one?
The one,
Palmer's the thing in that moment.
yeah, Palmer. I just love how like it's Palmer's turn and he just hits him with like the smirk. It's like, oh no,
Well,
dude.
yeah, and he's like
Oh
I noticed it because we obviously all know watching
yeah.
it multiple times that Palmer's the thing in that moment, and he's just like, and then
Yeah,
it
oh
goes.
man. I just do the vibrating. Anyway, sorry. $15 million budget, by the way. That's kind of
Yeah,
wild. That's kind of crazy.
it's
But
pretty low, but it's
yeah,
enough.
I would. Yeah. All right. Jason's up.
It going off what Austin said about the practical effects. I mean, it's really impressive what they were able to do back in the day. Probably my favorite like horror genre movie is the original Alien, and it just reminds me a lot of that. I mean, that was what was that late 70s? Uh,
79.
yeah,
Mhm.
so it's
Someone just
just
shot a
so
gun
cool. Like,
outside my place. Sorry.
actually, no, literally the same exact thing just happened here. They did like
Yeah,
six
that
times.
was it wasn't I know it's a gun because it's like the double sound, right? Because it's the
Yeah.
bullet and the like the secondary, right?
Well, it's Chris.
Oh,
He,
Chris.
he can't be
Chris.
getting away with it.
He can't. Dude,
I
gripping.
figured out who the thing was.
Sorry, Jason.
But no, I mean it's a really good movie. It did remind me though the whole time it was like kind of hard to watch because I'm like he watched Among Us and then like made a movie of like the game.
Dude.
Like played a round of Among Us and
Hold
he's
that
like
up,
this could be a good movie. This is a concept.
Oh my god, it's like Among Us.
It's like very similar.
So close.
Yeah,
But yeah,
May
that
or
was
may
the
not
end of
be.
my point. But yeah, it's a good movie.
yeah. I guess some quick background points. It's a remake of the 1951 movie, The Thing from Another World, which I watched a couple years back. It is really good. And John Carpenter actually didn't want to be the guy doing the remake for it. The studio kind of hired him for it, but he didn't. He was intimidated because he is such a fan of the original work. But he pulls it off remarkably. I mean, this is definitely better than the original. And the ultimate source material is a 1938 novella called Who Goes There? And the script for this is a lot more like that original novella than it is the remake from the 1951 version. So it's nice that they went back to the actual source material and made it a lot more grounded there, rather than kind of like the Cold War era and alien invasion movie that the 1951 version is. It wasn't popular at the time at all. It only made what, like close to $20 million off $15 million, which is insane. But you gotta look at 1982. I mean, it's a year that's very famous for having a whole bunch of blockbusters. So it had to compete against all those movies like Blade Runner and E.T. and Tootsie and Wrath of Khan. All of those movies made a lot of money, and so it kind of left nothing for the thing. But in recent years, obviously, it's gained such a resurgence in popularity. It's definitely a huge cult movie. Principal photography was in Juneau, Alaska, which I thought was crazy because it looks nothing like Juneau. That's not what it looks like these days. So, yay, global warming. But yeah, I mean, let's get into the story. I mean, the first shot of this movie, well, not the first shot, but the intro after we see the ship crash into Antarctica, we see Antarctica and it opens up the title card like Antarctica Winter 1982, and it's just white. And we see the helicopter come down off of the cliff and then down into the valley there, and it starts chasing the husky. Um, yeah, it's beautiful cinematography like that throughout the entire movie. Very, very isolating, cold, desolate shots. And Dean Cundey, the cinematographer, stays with that tonally to give us a sense of isolation throughout the movie. And then we get the score, like Nick kind of briefly mentioned before. It's it's Ennio Morricone does the score for this, but he basically just copies what John Carpenter does on all of his movies with a very simple, very repetitive score to the point where it's not even a melody. It's literally two notes. It's pretty much just a hook. It's just a dun dun, and then kind of the droning synth in the back with those two notes. But it's so effective. And again, it all kind of creates the atmosphere of this movie, the very chilly vibe that the entire movie gives off. And that's why I really like the movie. It's just the atmosphere it gives off. It really lends itself to making the paranoia just that more believable. Let's get into, I guess, the characters, because that's really the source of the material here is the characters.
Main characters, Mac, right? So
Yeah, McCready.
yeah, and then I don't know. I mean, for the most, because there's so much going on in the movie, like it shows the characters a little bit and how they interact with each other, and then after that, like for the most part, it doesn't really like the characters themselves aren't super well, not like the like the characteristics of the characters, like they're aren't really super dived into. It's just once the action kicks off, there's not a whole lot of like them sitting down and having discussions or anything. It's over and over again. It's like, oh shit, the monster's here. We gotta do something. And then oh, the monster's here again. So I'm not too much to talk about other than yeah, I mean, even there's no like even there's not even really a whole lot of character development. Like from the beginning, it's like McCready, who's the main character. He is like I'm not like the head, but he's like that leadership under fire. He always just knows like this is what I got to do. He's like ready to take the reins on everything.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the characterization for a bit because yeah, I mean most of the plot is kind of just the paranoia banter back and forth, but I mean Carpenter does a really good job non-verbally characterizing our people here because take McCready's intro for example. He's playing chess, he's alone in his shack, he's drinking some whiskey, and the moment the computer beats him, he basically plays chess like Nick D'Onofrio and just rage quits and throws his whiskey into the computer and shorts it.
It is wild
Um,
because, like literally, I think a minute or so after that, when they're talking about the Norwegians, they're like, "Oh man, they must have got stir crazy." Just and like, there's not a lot to like keep you occupied. So imagine just like getting frustrated even a little bit, and then destroying one of your few sources of entertainment just right off the get go. It's kind of impressive.
yeah, and then also like after that, when they get into the helicopter to explore the Norwegian base, he's like, "Ah, oh, those fucking Swedes," and then the doctor corrects him. He's like, "They're Norwegians." So yeah, I mean, but that's all the characterization you need for him because immediately, right off the bat, you understand that he's kind of a loner type. He's macho. He is kind of he's not going to listen to anyone other than himself. So he is that renegade maverick type, and we get all of that mostly from nonverbal introduction, just seeing how he interacts with, ironically enough, a computer, the only non-human element there other than the dog. And yeah, he's the only one in that scene too who's separated from everyone else. Everyone else is playing ping pong in the rec room. So yeah, I mean, Carpenter's kind of telling us right there that either A, McCready is going to be suspect number one, or he's going to be the lone survivor. And that's also kind of where the movie leaves us off.
I was more interested in figuring out who was and who wasn't the thing, at least at any moment of time. Because like I remember earlier viewings, the first person I thought that got infected was like Windows because of the dog going into that room with the shadow, which I found out. You guys know that scene, right?
Yes,
Which I
that's
found out that John Carpenter just hired a completely random actor for that. Like it wasn't anybody who was actually in the cast. It was a completely random person.
the stunt guy. It's the stunt
Oh,
guy.
the stunt guy, but still,
Yeah.
like it looked like none of them, so it was supposed to leave us up to thing. But I actually think, honestly, the first person to get infected was the George Bennings character, the bald guy. He was like the ginger dude who got shot in the leg by the Norwegian because
Right.
the dog like licked him in the mouth.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I
I
was
mean,
like, wait a minute. And plus, like pretty much the whole time the character was kind of sus anyway. Like he was super defensive and super like self-preservation-y from the very beginning. And he got shot. So it was just like a double whammy there. Like I'm convinced that it was actually him who got infected first. I know that's like definitely not like the normal route that most people take and who's like got infected first, but yeah, I was more just like enthralled with trying to figure out who was and who wasn't the thing at any moment in time. But I don't know about you guys, like how you guys felt about that.
but that's the thing. So much is implied, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't even know what really happens to Fuchs. He just kind of
Dude,
disappears, and that's never solved.
no, W Mans. Fuchs fucking killed himself, dude. W Mans right there. What do they got? What did they?
I agree with that, but we
Yeah,
don't know because
dude.
a lot is
What?
implied.
His fucking his body was on the ground. It was burned.
Yeah, but we don't know if Fuchs necessarily committed suicide
I mean, still, I don't know.
because
W.
Blair could have killed him
Ah, okay, but I
easily.
mean, yeah, but he's still dead though. I mean, at the end of the day, still
Well,
fuck.
yeah, I'm not arguing that he's not dead. We just don't know what happened to him exactly.
Oh, I want to believe he was righteous. He was the only one the whole time where I was like, I was rooting for Fuchs, man. I really was.
But like, we also don't know how Blair got infected and when Blair got infected because Blair
Yeah,
was not infected before he gets put in the shack, but we find out after he is definitely infected and he's crawling under the shack and creating the spaceship. So we don't know when
yeah.
Blair gets infected. A lot is intentionally left vague for us to keep guessing and for the characters to always keep guessing about who and what is a thing if they are a thing. I mean, and you can see that with the camera work too. So much of this movie is just insert shots of looks and characters nonverbals. Are they nervous? Are they hiding something? You don't necessarily know which is which. It's
Especially,
really simple, really effective though.
I think the best character who does that is Clark, because Clark makes you're like, dude, he's so fucking, he has to be the thing, and then he ends up not being it, like ever. Like he just gets fucking murdered. It's like, dang. I was convinced he was. Especially because the dog thing, But
Yes.
yeah.
You want to
I
Jane
talk
don't know.
about
Austen.
we want
What?
to talk about the very obvious subtext of the movie being about like communism.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean it was I mean the original movie came out in the 50s. This movie came out in the 80s, so it's not quite the McCarthy era Red Scare, but it's still in the middle of the Cold War. So there was a lot of those feelings of communism is evil and it's spreading around that was still present in the media at that time. So this is a really fun way to show the paranoia that the American public had of communists at the time, where they can be anyone, they can look just like you, but they're completely different and they're evil.
Yeah, they
Um,
are.
Accurate.
Right.
I also
Thanks, Jay.
I also kind of like so the thing is like I'm trying to remember how the doctor describes it, but it's like a like each little individual part makes up the whole body of it, right? It can be split apart, but you have to like burn all of it to get rid of it. And it's goes along those lines of how people felt about communists back then, where it's like you have to destroy, eradicate all of it, or it'll never go away. Um, I just thought it was really neat. I like seeing that kind of stuff in movies because it was also in Oppenheimer a little bit where you really felt how people felt about communism and just how like unfairly Oppenheimer was treated because he just wanted Florence Pugh, and then that's what he got for it.
Read the words. Read the words. Wait, have you heard the theory that it's also a subtext for AIDS?
Um,
I don't really buy into it, but the explanation is that, oh, it's 12 men all alone in the
Oh
80s,
my
and they
God,
do blood testing for each other to see who's infected.
dude.
I'm
It's a
like,
bit of a
that's
stretch,
reading it
but it's
way
great.
too into it.
That's a bad English essay right there. That's too deep. That's so deep.
That is really funny
Yeah,
though.
that is kind of
Yeah.
funny.
I was like, no, that's just not it.
Oh,
Maybe that's what Jay thought, though. I actually think Jay is the one who told me that.
Yeah, the whole time I was watching it, I was just so aroused. So that was like the first thing that came to my mind.
oh my God.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
But yeah, Jay, character. I mean, what's your theory, Jay? I'm interested to hear what you think.
My theory on like what it's about.
Well, on like a first infection and kind of the infection chain and the whole progression there.
Yeah, it's actually really similar to this game that you can play on your phone. That was really about the extent of my analysis on it. I really was low IQ mode when I was watching it, so I just really I'm not kidding you when the whole time I'm like this is just like Among Us. I'm really impressed with how accurate he portrayed my emotions when I'm playing that game. Like I really want to know who did it and they're sneaking around and stuff.
You can never be alone.
Yeah, yeah, you can be so mischievous when you're alone. No, I also like noticed a lot of like plot holes. Maybe it's just I'm retarded and I was really just hyper fixating on those, but I was like, wait, if like one drop of blood is like totally sentient can like be on its own, then there's no getting rid of this thing. So it's like, oh, out there we go. The world has ended. The monster has taken over. There's just no way to prevent that. You can't, they're like burning the whole thing down, and I'm like, well, you don't know if you got him. He could have just like walked outside, you know.
And it does.
Well, so um, yeah, that was my whole analysis on the movie. That's about as deep as I got into it.
All right. Um, Want to talk about like the blood test scene? Because that's a really good one. That's a really tense scene where it's just lots of insert shots and editing to throw
Oh,
you off.
the fucking blood test. Another fucking plot hole that I just was like hyper fixating on was like they came up with this plan. It's like, okay, we can burn the blood and it'll definitely react to like a hot thing of copper. And with no like they didn't get a positive test. They just like it like the hot copper like hit the blood and nothing happened. It's like, okay, he's good. Give him a flamethrower. It's like they didn't really know for a fact that that actually worked.
Well, yeah, they don't, and that's kind of why like Childs is like this is a crock of shit until they hit Palmer's, and then they do figure out like, oh, it does work.
It's just funny that they put that much trust in that like test, and they're just like, all right, your blood didn't fight back, so I'm gonna give you a flamethrower. We'll see what happens with it.
Who you guys think got to the blood in the refrigerator?
It's either
I think
Norris or
I know.
Palmer.
What?
Norris or Palmer.
It's neither.
Who do you think?
So when Windows went to go back to George, oh yeah, because George was in that scene. Remember, like
Who's George?
Bennings?
Oh, Bennings. Okay.
Yeah, when him and Windows were in that room together, they were like going and grabbing something for McCready, I think. I could maybe pull up the clip and we could watch it again. But Windows goes away to grab something and then comes back to Bennings getting absolutely like freaking like gobbled up by the thing. And then you see windows run away and you can hear the keys drop. Like it's an audible, like you can hear like keys hitting the floor. And so I think George like went because that was like as George was becoming a thing. So I think George like went over and like slashed all of it, like opened up the thing and then yeah.
I
You
mean,
that's it
could
at
have.
all?
Well, no, could
You
have
want me
because
to like
he's
pull it? I could pull the
no,
clip
no.
up.
I know exactly the scene you're talking about because it's when
Yeah.
it's like literally around his neck, and then Windows freaks out and runs, and he's like, "It's Bennings," and then Bennings runs out, and then they torch him.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess is there enough time for Bennings to go and do that though?
That's what I was saying. It would have had to happen in like in the movie time, like 30 seconds to a minute before they all like run back, and he's already outside at that point when they're chasing him down.
Yeah.
Jason was the thing, and we had to kill him, so he's not going to be here anymore.
Blair has his meltdown before they go and look at the blood anyway. And so that was a perfect moment for somebody to go and open it up and do something. But I mean, I don't know. Um, I think Gary had his keys on him when Dr. Blair was blown up in the communications room. So, I mean, clearly maybe somebody, you know, I don't think could have gone and done the blood thing. I still think it's Bennings though. Because I think there was plenty of time in between then and then for Bennings to go in there and just like clobber it up. But I mean, who knows? Because Bennings wasn't fully human again, like between him getting infected and him dying. He still had his like hands were still fucked. So I mean that's also kind of a problem. But I don't know what you guys think about. Do you guys have any idea of who might have gotten in there? Because like obviously the keys get dropped. So there's the somebody had the keys. Somebody picked them up. But it's just who picked them up, I guess, is the real question.
Well, I mean, it could have been Bennings. It's just the time restriction there. I mean, for me, I always figured it's Norris or Palmer because obviously, in retrospect, the two of them are working together
Oh yeah.
throughout that part of the movie where before they do all the blood testing and before it really like kind of lashes out of Norris. We learned in retrospect that Palmer and Norris were infected pretty early on, and we don't necessarily know when, but they were the pair that was walking around among the rest of them undetected. So yeah, obviously, I think it's one of them. I'm not really sure who, and I don't think you really can definitively say if it is either one of them. Or yeah, I mean, it could be Bennings because there's nothing I don't think stopping Bennings from doing it other than just the time restriction.
Yeah. But like how would he know? Because did they even have that conversation about like they were gonna use the blood? That was my thing. Like, was Bennings privy to that conversation? Because it all kind of hinges on like when that conversation happened of like, oh, we'll do the blood test. Because then it would make me think when they had that conversation, who was in the group? Because then that would be somebody in that group had to have been privy to that convo. I can't remember who was in the group when they talked about it.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either for that one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I never really think too much about the blood thing. The 2 points that I like to focus on are the silhouette scene and then when Childs runs out at the end. Those are the two that I've really looked into and formed opinions on. But
The silhouette scene with Fuchs, right?
the silhouette scene where we see the dog go and infect
Oh,
one of the people, but we don't know who it is. And that's in the very beginning.
yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, obviously it has to be Norris or Palmer, right?
Yeah, it does have to be Norris or Palmer. And
To me,
based on the silhouette, it has to be either those two or Windows. And we do find out later that Windows was totally
yeah.
exonerated. He was never a thing until even all the way up until he dies, he was never infected.
I
So
think
it has to be Palmer or Norris. And I do think it is Palmer,
you think it's
partially
Palmer?
because I mean that was literally what was scripted.
Oh, was it?
But yeah, and what they shot, and then they're like, "Oh, well, his silhouette's kind of too obvious," which is why they hired Dick Warlock. Well, they didn't hire
Yeah.
him, but they pulled Dick Warlock in to reshoot that silhouette so that they can make it a little more vague.
That's a smart choice because, yeah.
But I mean, yeah, again, it was scripted to be Palmer, and yeah, it again in retrospect we realize that Palmer and Norris are the two who are working together and they're in cahoots.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the dog is uh, infecting Palmer in that scene. And that kind of leads into why I think Childs is infected at the end too, because I noticed something this time that I hadn't really noticed last time is that when John Carpenter films all those scenes where the thing, it's like the POV shot of the thing moving and going to infect the next person. Like that's what's happening. John Carpenter is like POVing the thing, and then someone else gets infected. Whether it's the dog, whether it's what we learned later is Blair walking by Fuchs, and Fuchs is in the he's doing his investigation, and then the lights go
Yeah.
out, and then Fuchs turns, and then Blair walks by him,
That
and
was
then
Blair? How'd you know that? Wasn't it just a
because
shadow?
yeah, but there's a sound effect that Carpenter does that he does again when only Blair's thing does at the end.
Really?
Yeah, when he kills Gary and Knowles.
Yeah.
And there's another type of POV tracking shot that Carpenter does near the end, and it feels kind of random because it doesn't explicitly telegraph us any information. It just shows us the generator room, and then we get a tracking shot as like the character walking, and it's going towards the outside main entrance where Childs was watching. But you see that
Yeah.
shot, and you're like, "Where is Childs?" Because he was supposed to be watching. And then, like two scenes later, we see Childs from where he was watching at post run out into the snow and he goes into the darkness,
Yep.
which tells me, I mean, John Carpenter was doing this before earlier in the movie, that that shot was from Childs' perspective. And at that point, he was infected, and then he's leaving there. And then that's why he walks out into the snow because Childs was the only one there at that point. And so
Yeah.
that was a POV shot from him after he's infected by Blair. And so that's why I think Childs is the thing at the end. Also, walking out into the snow without saying anything is unlike Childs. But yeah, I mean, the thing knows at that point that McCready's trying to burn a place down. So it just goes out into the snow and waits out there until everything's burning down. And then he sees McCready at the end. And then they sit down in the snow and drink the whiskey. So yeah, that whole sequence of events and my explanation for it is why I think Childs is the thing at the end.
No, I mean that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Austin, do you feel the same way about Childs?
That was that was really good. You know,
Yeah.
I never heard or thought of that before.
Me neither.
Um, yeah, I'm more interested if we're going to talk about Childs is that last scene when they're out there. Because I had never made a determination on if he was a thing or not, but I do really like that last scene. Because I read a theory where McCready actually gave Childs like gasoline to drink
Yeah.
in the very last scene. Um, although if Childs is the thing, then they all lost, right? Because I doubt that just because he's in the cold in Antarctica that the thing is going to die now.
No, it's just going to hibernate like it did for the thousands of years before.
Yeah, so yeah, that kind of sucks.
Well, it's
It does
like,
really. It does end on a kind of a sad note because I mean, no matter what, either he is or isn't, they're both dead anyway because they can't go anywhere. So
yeah, and that's totally consistent with Carpenter. Carpenter, I don't think there's not a single Carpenter movie I could think of where he ends on an optimistic note. It's always the really cynical outlook on life. That's what he does. And the other three movies in the Apocalypse trilogy all end on that note where, yeah, we didn't stop anything. The world is going to end still. So yeah, it is definitely totally consistent.
Although, I mean, is the thing necessarily going to go try and take over the world? I mean, wasn't it building the spaceship just so we can get off and leave?
good point.
So I like the idea that it's just like I'm just going to finish building the spaceship so I can go home or wherever the hell it is that it wants to go.
Yeah.
I do think the thing is afraid of the humans because there's a scene that I noticed this time when we know at this point, looking back, having seen the movie, that Norris is infected by this point, and they're talking about the leadership. Gary puts his gun down, and he's like, "Well, I think we can all agree no one has any problems with Norris." And then Norris, at that point, being infected, is like, "Oh, I'm not up for it," and he doesn't want the attention, and he just passes it off, and he's a little afraid. And then that's when they choose McCready. So I do think the thing is a little intimidated of the humans, and obviously the Blair version of the thing is trying to build the spaceship to get out of there.
I mean, do you think that's more of just like the self-preservation of the thing? Because
It could
if
be.
all the eyes are on Norris, then that means it's going to be easier for them to figure out that Norris is infected. And also, doesn't Norris like? I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I guess he is infected. But like, doesn't he just get like a really bad stomachache or something and like pass out, and then is on the autopsy table,
But
and
yeah,
that's
he
when
has
he
like the heart
finishes?
attack.
Yeah, like, do you think that Norris was actually kind of half okay before that point? Because it seemed like it was more, yeah, he has his heart attack, and I was thinking that was the things when it would finally took over like the rest of Norris's system is when he had the heart attack.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like he was still able to infect, but it was more like Norris was actually still kind of semi control of himself until he had the heart attack, and then that's when the thing finally like finished the process. I don't know. I mean, that was just something I noticed this time around. I was like, I don't know if I could make that determination like from
But
Norris.
yeah, I've always been confused as to why Norris has the heart attack if he is infected, because he is infected at that point, but he does have a heart attack. And I always wondered why, because that's human anatomy. And at that point, he's the thing.
But is he fully the thing? Because is he actually complete intimidation or sorry, imitation of it at that point?
I don't know.
it's just something that they don't explain super well
Yeah.
is how the thing assimilates people. Because
I don't know. I mean, that was just my like thing with Norris that I was like, oh, maybe it was just it took a little bit for him to get infected until he was sitting on the table, you know. But then again, that would imply that you can like become a copy of itself without anybody else like watching it happen. You know what I mean? Like from the inside out, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, like in a weird way, but earlier they explained that it's like a very obvious process, so it's like I don't know how that gets explained, but
Well, also, like, how reliable is any of that explanation? Because it isn't. Because
yeah,
that's just the explanation that
that the
they come
characters
up with
use.
in like the
Yeah.
couple hours that they have experience with this thing that they know nothing about. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, we still have no idea, and they still have no idea how this thing really works.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially for was it Norris who was like fucking no, it wasn't Norris. I was just thinking about when they were doing the autopsies on him. They were just freaking digging around. They had two gloves on. They wasn't even like long extended ones either. Like, especially with the way that they explain the infection, like they got infected immediately. If not every like that was kind of annoying with the autopsy. They were all just standing around it. I'm like, y'all just got infected immediately. Completely unsterilized room. Like, I just think that was kind of a weird note that I noticed where they're all just standing around it. And it's like, well, you know, it's not it's not a sterilized room. Like y'all just got infected technically, but
you
whatever.
didn't rub in before you went
Yeah,
on.
you didn't scrub in or anything. And we're just hanging around while he's fucking like, cracking shit open. I'm like, okay, everyone just got fucked. But I mean, then maybe it's not good for plot, obviously. So why the hell would that happen? But anyway,
That's the thing. Also, if it's dead or they believe it to be dead, then how would it infect?
but it's not dead because it's never dead.
Well,
unless you, it can't
A,
be
we
done
don't know
unless
that,
you
and
burn
B,
it.
they don't know that.
Well,
That's
yeah,
the
they
thing.
don't. Yeah, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was just something that I was like, well, technically, well, Ben Shapiro, well, technically, so that no, I like it wouldn't make sense for the plot, obviously, but that's what I was thinking. What else? What else is going on? Um, oh oh, yeah, where did the two dogs run off to? When they have that first scene when the thing like when we finally get introduced to the thing and those two dogs run off. I think like later in the movie they explain it where it was like I can't remember who, but it was like Blair shot the other two dogs or something like that, or it's just some crazy shit like that. I think it was Blair actually. Um, because then Clark immediately is like, "No way!" But I don't know. Did they just catch the other two dogs and put them away? Like, do you remember?
No,
I
I
don't
mean
know.
they don't ever come back. So
Yeah, I know. I just thought that was kind of like a weird thing that I think got explained, but I don't remember. Trying to think of other stuff to talk about. Got a bunch of notes here. Oh, I just want to say for myself and anybody, if anybody who cares, there was a Chariot of the Gods reference. If you know, you know. That's all I'm gonna say. I think could have been.
okay.
I know, I told you that it was just for me and whoever knows about it.
I know what Chariots of the Gods is, but what is the reference to Chariots of the Gods?
Oh no, it's just the fact that he talks about it. Like when they're all coming up with their theories of like what like where the fuck the alien thing came from. And the fact that he brings up Chariots of the Gods is just fun.
Oh, okay, yeah, I
Oh,
see.
and it's well, I mean, because it's also what's the guy's name? Hold on, I'll find the book real quick. Oh yeah, Graham Hancock. He's like this like alternate history guy who writes just really stupidly long books about alternate history, and he wrote a book called Chariot of the Gods, and it was just like it was where actually the first he coined the term meme, which is kind of crazy. If you didn't know, fun fact, Graham Hancock coined the term meme, and it was from the Chariot of the Gods book, if I remember correctly. So I just thought that was funny that there was a reference to it in there. Well, not to his work, but to just Chariot of the Gods.
Austin, any theories? I guess here.
Nothing that we haven't talked about. Yeah, like the movie is so wide open because so little bit is explained that there's so much left up to interpretation when you're watching it. I mean, that's part of why I like it so much. It's because it's such a head scratcher throughout the entire movie where you're just like, wow, I don't, what is happening? But I really like this movie a lot. But
Yeah,
no,
it's like one of the
nothing
great
really.
cliffhangers.
Oh yeah. Um,
I don't have any more notes.
yeah,
We've kind of covered all of it,
I
but
like the idea that Mac gave Childs the like the gasoline to test if they actually got the thing or not, or if Childs was it. Although I'm not really sure why he was suspicious of Childs at the end. I guess
Because
just being that
they
paranoid
see
is,
him
is
run
you're
off.
like suspicious of everyone. So I guess that makes sense.
Well, yeah, they see him run off, and they don't know why he runs off, and then he shows up at
Oh
the
yeah,
end after everything's burned down.
yeah, you're right.
Fun fact: the chess machine, the voice of the chess machine, is Carpenter's then wife at the time, Adrienne Barbeau, who one of I can think of two reasons why she's one of my favorite actresses from the '80s. Uh, So yeah, that's a nice little
Yeah.
Easter egg. His wife at the time, voice of the chess machine, they get shorted out because McCready can't handle losing to anything.
Can't handle losing a fucking chess match.
Yeah, stop me if that sounds familiar.
Uh,
Yeah, what else we got? Some funny stuff
Yeah,
that
funny.
I
Funny,
like in
funny.
this movie. McCready's hat is so fucking
Oh,
stupid.
dude, that was the
Dude,
his hat is so
it's so
silly, bro.
goofy.
Oh my God, I hated that thing.
It's something Trenholm would wear unironically.
It reminded me of like a Pancho Villa hat, but he wore it sideways. I'm like, what are you doing? And he wears it in the helicopter too, right?
Yeah.
Like it was so dumb, dude. Oh my God. I just like he was not looking to fly. That was tough, man.
Gary, when he's like, I know you gentlemen have had a long and tiring night, but I wouldn't mind it if you could unstrap me from this fucking couch. Yeah, that part is always so
That's
funny.
Oh man, that's good.
And, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, it's like half funny, half really creepy,
Yeah.
is when they go check up on Blair the
I was
second time when
yeah.
he's in the shack and he just has the noose
The noose.
clearly in frame, just hanging there. And he's like, I like to go
I want
inside
to come
now.
back.
Yeah, and he's like,
I'm not gonna hurt anybody.
yeah, and he's like,
I'm okay.
I'm much better now.
I
I'm much better now. And then like
fucking love that.
McCready closes and like he gets up and he's like, no way.
No, no, wait.
Oh, the noose is there the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? It
That
only
was
makes me really wonder, like, I really think Blair killed Fuchs there, or at least made
yeah,
Fuchs commit suicide.
yeah.
But yeah, the Blair in that scene is so funny. And throughout the entire movie, his rage,
That's a
like
great scene.
when he takes everything out, is just really funny too.
You think I'm crazy?
And watch Clark closely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
And Clark ends up being the most normal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite death in the movie?
Damn. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that yet. Oh, honestly, Dr. Copper, dude, just getting his friggin' arms like just chomped on. That's such a because that came out of nowhere. Talk about like that actually fucking scared me a little bit. That scene because I was just like, oh, chest compressions. What a noble endeavor. Or yeah, or and doing the whatever the thing is called. What are those things called?
Defibrillator.
Defibrillator when he's doing the dude, it totally catches you by surprise because you're like, oh, he's helping him. Yeah, that's honestly like my favorite death scene. Um, although Palmer like fucking ascending into the ceiling is kind of funny too. Also killing the little crab like spider. I don't know. I feel like it was all kind of funny because like Norris's head was just a little fucking spider and Palmer rats it out. I just thought that was yeah, that was funny too.
on my way to get another beer out of the fridge.
But Palmer is my favorite death scene because he immediately just starts like vibrating, and then
Yeah.
Childs and Gary are freaking the fuck out, and then he like turns around and his face is all contorted and like melting, and then yeah, he fucking flies up into the ceiling, comes down, bites off Window's head,
Oh,
gets set on fire, and then McCready throws TNT at him and blows him up. I'm like, that is just the most insane sequence of events. Yeah,
Oh, I
Palmer's
forgot
death.
he chomped windows. Oh man.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's easily my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Man, I still stand behind that blood test scene. That's such a good because it's so like the horror in this movie is really understated. There's not a whole lot of it where it's like stuff's jumping out at you or anything. It's you feeling that tension that all the other characters are feeling. And then when the payoff is this grotesque body horror that's like unimaginable. It's and John Carpenter did a fantastic job, I think, like really putting those pieces together. You know, because I mean, like the tension of that blood test scene where they're like, because it was like the third, like the petri dish of like blood or something is the one that they finally got a positive on. So you're like watching and staring at him as, and then he's like, "Oh wait, hold on, I gotta heat it up again." So and then he stops and takes the flamethrower out to heat up a piece of copper wire.
Yeah, and there's so many insert shots there between the characters looking, between the flamethrower heating up the copper wire, between it going into the blood. There's lots of just intercutting to it makes it very tense because you know one of these cuts is going to be the jump, but you don't know which one. Um, and Carpenter even primes us pretty good for it because in the shot, the hand is holding the blood sample like this, and it's a model hand. But he doesn't use it the whole time because you would pick up on it. But a shot before it actually goes off, it's in frame so that it wouldn't look too unnatural when the effect does happen. So we were already primed to see the hand there and not think anything of it for when it did go off, which I think is genius. And yeah, just it goes into the use of practical effects in this film is just absolutely amazing. Like even the title card, they filled an aquarium with smoke and then lit a garbage bag on fire and then it dissolved away into the title card.
That's so fucking cool.
It's genius how they
Who
use
thought of
the
that?
effects.
Yeah, I mean, who fucking thought of that? That's
It's
so
it's they had it's what they had to do. And like at the time, uh when they were granting the budget of this movie, it was the most they ever allotted for practical effects in a film.
Hmm.
Of a film of this caliber. It's crazy how much they devoted. It's like they spent close to over $1 million just on the effects alone in this movie, which is insane.
Yeah.
Especially when you have really good actors like Kurt Russell, who would have been expensive to cast in this movie when it only had a $15 million budget. It it makes such effective use of all of its money. Granted, filming it on location, only in one location, and then the rest in what would have been a pretty small set for the interior of the shack or the base camp. I mean, that would have been a relatively cheap set, but still, just how much they had to expend on those effects is insane. I can't gush about John Carpenter enough. For my money, he is the best horror director of all time. And like John Carpenter, like his movies aren't really too scary. There are definitely some scenes that are really creepy and unsettling, especially in some of his other movies like Prince of Darkness. But his movies aren't what you think of like jump scary type scary movies, or they're not even like I don't know, just some of them like they're not like super scary movies, but they are really entertaining. Every single one of John Carpenter's movies is, despite how cynical in tone they are, they're really fun to watch. Like really, really fun to watch. I always love rewatching his movies, and they are definitely out there and creepy and creative. Above all, they are super creative horror movies. This is a guy who just really understands the medium and pushes the medium to just show you something that you've never seen before in a movie. And that's why I love John Carpenter movies.
Oh, Ghosts of Mars.
Yeah, I mean that movie sucks. But no, like seriously, like he only has about three movies that are bad. The rest are pretty awesome.
Oh, that's why Ghosts of Mars flopped. 2011. Came out August 24th, 2001. That's tough.
Love this movie. I mean, I think it's a really good movie. I'm gonna start watching more Carpenter movies.
Same. I think everybody needs to give this movie a watch because it's one of the few movies where like a mystery plus like what is this kind of genre? Not the horror, but the plot. What's the
A
plot is
who
like
done it?
yes, a whodunit plot. I think it's honestly one of the best I've ever seen because it's like playing a game of guess. If you played that board game, pretty sure everybody has played that game. So, you gonna play guess?
I have.
Austin, I think you'd be really good at it because it's just like power of deductive reasoning and like you could just crush that game. But yeah, I think like everybody needs to watch this movie because it's just one of the best of who done it and guess who of all time. I don't think I've seen a better version of it. And plus, like, just good movies need to be watched. You know, it's like, why the fuck can this amount of thought and effort not be put into most movies? It just seems kind of weird. Like, I mean, obviously, we're not fucking movie directors, so who knows? Like, I mean, I don't know the extent of what it
Speak
takes.
for yourself, Nicholas.
Well, I'm just no, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I've never directed a movie, so obviously there's way more thought and stuff into it. But like, I don't know. I feel like if you can iron out the plot of a good movie and just put some thought into it, like the way John Carpenter does in the thing, like I feel like most movies could be this good, but I don't know. Clearly, if that's not true. So, because Neil Breen, I think I don't know how deep Neil Breen thinks about movies, but obviously quite a bit. But
Oh God.
yeah, no, it's so much fun. I love this movie.
Yeah. Give it a watch. I mean, it's a cult classic for a reason.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm man, watching this and getting into the John Carpenter kick again really makes me want it to be October right now because I just want to go on a John Carpenter marathon. But stay tuned for October because we will be John Carpentering for sure. At least I will be.
What are we listening? What are we talking about next week?
Uh, PTA ranking, right?
Oh, okay,
Ooh,
yeah.
We're
Is
ranking
that
Paul
right?
Thomas Anderson.
Movies to watch. Damn.
Oh fuck yeah! I have so much to watch.
We had this on the docket.
Good thing.
But yeah,
Yeah,
until
but I
next
kind of need to
time.
watch Mirrors. The Mirror.